When you first look at a military standards document, it can seem, well, let's be honest, kind of dense, maybe even a little boring. But what if I told you that hidden inside all that formality is an actual story? A story about an investigation, about evidence, and the relentless search for proof. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to deconstruct one of the most important documents out there for high-stakes software, the software test report.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the basic anatomy of the report itself. Then, we'll talk about setting the stage, all that crucial context. After that, we'll get into the overall assessment, then dive really deep into the evidence and the details, and finally, we'll land on the final verdict and why all this matters so much.
All right, let's jump right in. First things first, we need to get a handle on what this document actually is and what it's trying to do.
And this is it, the cover page of a software test report, or STR. It looks super official, a little complex, probably full of jargon, right? But this thing right here, it's the final chapter in a really long story of development and testing. The real question is, what story is it telling?
Okay, so the best way to think about this, it's like a detective's case file. Seriously, if software testing is the investigation, then the STR is the complete file you hand over at the end. It's got everything, all the evidence, from witness statements to the nitty-gritty forensic details, all organized to back up a final conclusion for the client, or, as the standard calls them, the acquirer, who has to make the big call.
So, how does a report like this even begin to build its case? Well, before you can get to any results, you have to establish an ironclad context. Every good investigation, after all, needs to define the scene of the crime, so to speak.
And that starts with being incredibly precise. I mean super precise. The standard demands a full, unambiguous identification. We're not just talking about the software. No way. We're talking about a specific computer software configuration item, a CSCI, with its own unique version and release number. Every single detail is locked down tight, so there is absolutely zero confusion about what was actually tested.
Okay, so with the scene set, the report gets to the part everyone flips to first. The big picture summary. This is our first real glimpse into how the software held up under pressure.
This is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Did it pass or did it fail? But, in the world of these incredibly complex systems, the answer is almost never a simple yes or no. And the standard knows this. It requires a much more thoughtful answer.
So here's the deal. A proper assessment actually has three parts. First, you state the overall performance. But second, you absolutely have to identify any problems or limitations that are still there. And third, and this is so important, you recommend a path forward. See, it's not just about finding the problems. It's about figuring out the next steps to get them fixed.
All right, that overall assessment, that's just the headline. Now we get into the real meat of the report. This is where the story truly unfolds, and it's all backed up by cold, hard evidence.
The deep dive begins with a complete summary of all the test results. And I mean all of them. Whether a test passed perfectly, ran into some issues, or maybe you had to deviate from the plan, every single outcome is accounted for. There's no hiding the bad news or cherry-picking the good stuff. That level of transparency is absolutely mandatory.
And this is where the detective work really shines. I mean, it's one thing to say a test passed, but to document a failure? That takes a whole other level of rigor.
When something actually fails, the amount of forensic detail you need is just staggering. You can't just write, "The app crashed," not even close. You have to describe the problem, pinpoint the exact test step where it happened, state how many times you could repeat it, and then provide references to all the backup data so someone else can come along and replicate your findings perfectly. You have to prove the problem exists beyond any doubt.
And backing all of that up is the final layer of proof, the test log. Now, this isn't a summary. It's a minute-by-minute chronological record of the entire testing event. It documents exactly who ran the test, who was there to witness it, and the precise hardware and software configuration they used. It's like the unbreakable chain of custody for every single piece of evidence in that report.
So after all of that incredible detail, what's the point, right? Why go to all this trouble to document every single step, every success, and every single failure?
This quote, straight from the standard itself, says it all. The whole purpose of this document, with all its crazy detail and rigor, is to empower that acquirer,
the organization paying for all this, to make a smart, informed, evidence-based decision. It's designed to take opinion right out of the equation and replace it with verifiable fact.
And that kind of leaves us with one last big thought, doesn't it? This level of accountability is the baseline for the critical systems our whole society depends on. So it really makes you wonder, what's the standard for the dozens of other apps and software services you and I rely on every single day? What do you think their case file looks like?